Welcome to the Purposepreneur Podcast with K. Francis Smith.
Hey everybody, this is K. Francis Smith, and I want to welcome you to the Purposepreneur Show. I help people find, fund, and fulfill their purpose so they can live their best life and so that the world can become a better place. Listen, today, this is groundbreaking territory. Today, we are going to be dealing with a world changer. This man has shaken up the world. He has literally changed the way we communicate. He is not only a mogul, this man is an inventor extraordinaire, entrepreneur extraordinaire. This man is all that and then some. And let me tell you something. Stories like this, when I cover stuff like this, it changes my mind. I've been challenged. I've grown tremendously through this process. And there are some lives you can look at and, man, you look at them and you say, I get it. You know, maybe some people, you look at their story and you don't even know how in the world did he get where he is. And then there are other people. You look at their story and you say, man, how in the world do you even think like that? How do you even conceptualize? What paradigm are you operating from, man? What kind of software are you working with? Because I need some of that downloaded to my hard drive. I'm telling you, this guy here is a major. So here at the Purposepreneur Show, what we deal with is business and purpose. So today we're going to be talking about the business of purpose. And I am covering a man named Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, Mr. Apple, Mr. Mac, Mr. iPhone, who changed the world and changed the way we communicate. I'm telling you, when you look at this little thingy here, this little doohickey in my hand, this little, man, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a computer. It's not exactly a phone. But you better know that I've got more power in my hand, more information in my hand than the president of the United States had at his immediate disposal 10 years ago. Can you imagine that? When you can go to YouTube University and you don't have to go to the $100,000 university anymore, that there's more information in this phone, this little contraption. Who would have thought you could press on a little icon or you could press on a little button and things would just pop out and you could reach somebody and do FaceTime in another country. So this is an amazing deal. It gets me excited. And if you're anything like me, this episode will transform your life. So let's look at how a dreamer named Steve Jobs changed the world.
We are delivering today the iPad, the new iMac, the iPod, iPhoto, MacBook Air, iTunes. It's a revolutionary moment.
He was one of the most creative and daring CEOs. A global icon who shaped the worlds of technology and media. For over 30 years, computers, music, movies, and mobile phones were transformed by Apple's Steve Jobs. He was a brilliant visionary. Few executives in history suffered such painful setbacks.
It looked like Jobs was washed up and was a total has-been.
Or enjoyed as much success.
Steve, I love you!
And Steve came back and began what I think is the greatest turnaround in the history of corporate America. A very remarkable man, extremely smart, a spellbinding, mesmerizing leader of people.
Jobs went from having nearly blown this amazing fortune and bankrupted himself to rising as a billionaire with a brilliant future.
Steve Jobs was a true son of Silicon Valley. Born in 1955 in San Francisco, he was raised in its freewheeling culture of experimentation and innovation. Alan Deutschman is an author who has written extensively about Jobs and Apple.
Steve Jobs, from going back to when he was a teenager, was very influenced by the 1960s, 1970s counterculture. You know, he loved the Beatles, he loved Bob Dylan.
He enrolled in Oregon's Reed College, but dropped out to travel after just one semester. Robert X. Cringely was Apple Computer employee number 12.
When I met him, he was, I think, 19 years old. He had hair down to his waist, and he only ate fruit. And he was, clearly a hippie.
When Jobs returned to his childhood home in California, he became interested in what was then an entirely new concept, the personal computer. He joined meetings of the Homebrew Computer Club with a man who would become his partner in founding Apple Computer, Steve Wozniak.
People are getting up. These computers are going to revolutionize life. And I felt like, oh my God, I'm a part of this huge revolution that we're talking about. Everybody's going to have a computer in the home, and nobody in the outside world believes us. Projects that I would design and build, very frequently, Steve would say he knew how to sell it.
Jobs and Wozniak took time off their day jobs to set up shop in the family garage in Los Altos.
We didn't have a telephone to phone the computer stores in the garage. That was in Steve's bedroom.
The team's first computer, the Apple I. As the tech industry in Silicon Valley took off, Jobs saw opportunity.
The penalty for failure for going and trying to start a company in this valley is non-existent. There really isn't a penalty for failure either psychologically or economically, in the sense that if you have a good idea and you go out to start your own company, even if you fail, you're generally considered worth more to the company you left because you've gained all this valuable experience in many disciplines.
Are you inspired yet? Have you seen what you need to see yet? Has it hit you yet? Listen, there's a few things I took out of that segment. Listen, I'm telling you this. It's not about where you start. It's what you do with what's in your hand. Remember, they started in a garage. Remember that? A garage? You mean to tell me Apple started in a garage? You mean to tell me Steve Jobs was homeless? I think we put too much stock in where we start. Listen, let me talk to you. Wherever you are, whoever you are, you don't worry about where you start. Don't you worry. Don't despise the day of small beginnings. Don't worry about where you start. Make sure that wherever you start. Because I'm telling you, done is the new perfect. Done is so much better. If you can get that first foot moving, most people suffer from the paralysis of analysis. They never get it started because they don't believe they can get it done. Their mind tells them, this might be possible for someone else, but maybe not for me. Maybe, I'll settle. They dummy it down. One thing I respect about Steve Jobs is that he did not dummy down his dream. He said, listen, if Disney can dream, I can dream. I can dream as big as anyone. Can you imagine him calling up? I'll talk about that later. Here's my point. My point is this. Don't expect everyone to see it when you see it. You just get it started. You see it. Let them catch it later on. Right? You're worried about people catching it. Right now, somebody's about to quit. Don't quit. You've come too far. There are too many people depending upon you. What if Mr. Steve Jobs would have quit? Where would we be now? We'd probably have some paper cups and we'd be talking to each other on some old flip phones. You remember the flip phones? He changed that. I always ask myself this question. I wonder where we would be today if Steve Jobs was still alive. He had one of those minds that just revolutionized stuff. Maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you're one of the people who have a special kind of unique gift of not only inspiring people, but creating things that change the world. Don't let anyone take that from you. Don't let anyone make you believe that you can't do it. You can do whatever you put your mind to. Don't wait for people to see it. You see it and let them catch up to it. All right, there it is. I've said my part. I'm excited about life. I'm seeing new things. This thing has my mind. And when I see stuff like this, it's hard for me to sit still because when I hear them saying things like every person will have a personal computer, I can be honest with you. Back in the 1980s, that wasn't a reality for us. We were fancy if we had a typewriter. A personal computer, like a whole computer in your house where you can literally hit keys and information highway. What are we talking about right now? How will you even communicate with other people? But he saw something that no one else saw. Well, we're going to go into a video because some people are suffering because they don't realize that failure is not final and success is actually a direct result of much failure. So let's get into this idea of failure. Mr. Steve Jobs, please talk to us about failure. Let's go.
Now, I've actually always found something to be very true, which is most people don't get those experiences because they never ask. I've never found anybody that didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. I always call them up. I called up this will date me, but I called up Bill Hewlett when I was 12 years old, and he lived in Palo Alto. His number was still in the phone book. And he answered the phone himself. He said, yes? He said, hi, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm 12 years old. I'm a student in high school, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I could have. And he laughed, and he gave me the spare parts to build this frequency counter, and he gave me a job that summer in Hewlett-Packard, working on the assembly line, putting nuts and bolts together on frequency counters. He got me a job in the place that built them. And I was in heaven. And I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. You gotta act. And you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to crash and burn, with people on the phone, with starting a company, with whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far.
All right, failure's no excuse. Fear of failure is no excuse. You can't use failure as an excuse. You got to get out there and go for it. How you like him? Cold calling Mr. Packard from Hewlett-Packard. Think about that. This was named after this man. And a 12-year-old Steve Jobs says, hey, I want you to give me something because I'm trying to do something that's going to change the world. And Mr. Packard laughed at him. Nobody laughing now. Not laughing now. If you're anything like that, folks will laugh at you in the beginning. People will laugh at you. The thing that stuck with me was when he said that, not that he laughed at him, but when he was willing to do something unconventional that no one told him no. He was so far out there at such a young age that people said, well, what can it hurt to help him? People get inspired by a big dream. What am I telling you? Dream bigger. Go harder, reach higher, go stronger. You'll last longer, you'll live better, and you'll be able to impact someone's life. You know what vow I took years ago? All right, I'm gonna give you a secret. Here it is, you ready? I'm gonna give you a secret to success. If you're going to get into business, make sure it changes someone else's life. And that will change the world. All right, I just gave you a big secret. If you can commit to changing someone's life, business is never about making money. Money is a byproduct. When you talk about purpose, you always talk about someone else. Think about the purpose of a cup. Worked for me. Think about the purpose of a phone. Worked for me. Think about the purpose of a desk. Worked for me. Think about the purpose of a Purposepreneur Show. It's not as much for me as much as it is for someone else. So whatever you get here today, I want you to go and share it with someone else because someone else needs what you have. And you are the perfect solution to somebody's problem. Okay? I got one more thing I want to say about this. Exposure is the key. Exposure is the key. Oh man, Steve Jobs gets exposed to Xerox PARC. Xerox? I'm tripping. He's born in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, as it were. He calls Mr. Packard from Hewlett-Packard. Mr. Packard is in the yellow pages. Not only is he in the yellow pages, he answers the phone. After he answers the phone, he gives him the time of day. Not only does he give him the time of day, he gives him exactly what he asked for, which means he got to meet him in person at the age of 12. And then not only does he do that, he gets access, big word, access to Xerox PARC. Y'all, you might not be old enough to remember Xerox machines. Sometimes I go traveling abroad and I go to third world countries and I'm always tripping out when they use Xerox machines. That's so dated. The Xerox. That's where our first copying machines. Now we're all digital and all of that. You know, we got to have high-res copies and the big old thing and the big thing's bigger than your whole world, right? 30-foot long presses, print presses. Back in the day, you had a Xerox machine. You get carbon copies. Sign this and you rip it. Carbon, literally. You go some. He had access to Xerox, which let him get an insider perspective. Access is the key for opportunity. Opportunity is the key for success. You don't hear me? Success is the key to destiny. So you got to sow access right to get opportunity. Can you be trusted with access? You get access. What are you going to do? You're going to steal an idea? What are you going to do? You get access. What are you going to do with access? Can you be trusted with access? Are you going to share a secret? He can be trusted with access. Exposure is a key to success. So he gets exposed to Xerox, and what does he do? He gets an idea, and the idea changed the world. So now we're going to deal with this idea of building a company, which starts with hires. You have to have a team. And you better have a paid team, because if you're not paying them, they might not show up. And if they do, they might not show up with the goodies, because there are levels to this thing. Hear me well. There are levels. Could it be that you've got a bunch of B and C players on your team, and that's why your company's not flying? Could it be that just like LeBron James last year, remember last year, everybody's looking at them this year, they're doing great. They're about to win the championship, but guess what? Last year, they didn't make the playoff. Why didn't they make the playoffs? Because they didn't have the necessary players to make the playoffs. My goodness. You can never underestimate the power of the team. Team is everything. So let's check out how Steve Jobs hires. All right? Show us how to hire, sir, please.
The greatest people are self-managing. They don't need to be managed. Once they know what to do, they'll go figure out how to do it, and they don't need to be managed at all. What they need is a common vision, and that's what leadership is. What leadership is having a vision, being able to articulate that so the people around you can understand it, and getting a consensus on a common vision. We wanted people that were insanely great at what they did, but we're not necessarily those seasoned professionals, but who had at the tips of their fingers and in their passion the latest understanding of where technology was and what we could do with that technology, and who wanted to bring that to lots of people. So the neatest thing that happens is when you get a core group of 10 great people, it becomes self-policing as to who they let into that group. So I consider the most important job of someone like myself is recruiting.
We agonized over hiring. We had interviews. You could go back and look at some of the interviews agendas. They would start at 9 or 10 in the morning and go through dinner. A new interviewee would talk to everybody in the building at least once and maybe a couple times, and then come back for another round of interviews, and then we'd all get together and talk about it.
And then before they fill out an application.
No, they never filled out.
The most critical part of the interview, at least to my mind, was when we finally decided we liked them enough to show them the Macintosh prototype, and then we sat them down in front of it, and if they just kind of were bored or said, this is a nice computer, we didn't want it. We wanted their eyes to light up and them to get really excited, and then we knew they were one of us.
And everybody just wanted to work, not because it was work that had to be done, but it was because something that we really believed in, that was just going to really make a difference. And that's what kept the whole thing going.
We all wanted exactly the same thing, and instead of spending our time arguing about what the computer should be, we all knew what the computer should be, and we just went and did it.
We went through that stage in Apple where we went out and we thought, oh, we're going to be a big company, let's hire professional management. We went out and hired a bunch of professional management. It didn't work at all. Most of them were bozos. They knew how to manage, but they didn't know how to do anything. And so if you're a great person, why do you want to work for somebody you can't learn anything from? And you know what's interesting? You know who the best managers are? They're the great individual contributors who never, ever want to be a manager, but decide they have to be a manager because no one else is going to be able to do as good a job as them.
After hiring 2 professional managers from outside the company and firing them both, Jobs gambled on Debbie Coleman, a member of the Macintosh team. 32 years old, an English literature major with an MBA from Stanford, Debbie was a financial manager with no experience in manufacturing.
I mean, there's no way in the world anybody else would give me this chance to run this kind of operation. And I don't kid myself about that. This is an incredible high risk, both for myself personally and professionally, and for Apple as a company, to put a person like myself in this job. I mean, they're really betting on a lot of things. We're betting that my skills at organizational effectiveness, override all those, lack of technology, lack of experience, lack of, time in manufacturing. So it's a big risk, and I'm just an example, and every single person on the Mac team, almost to your, entry-level person, you could say that about. This is a place where people were afforded just incredibly unique opportunities to prove that they could write the book again.
Inscribed inside the casing of every Macintosh, unseen by the consumer, are the signatures of the whole team. This is Apple's way of affirming that their latest innovation is a product of the individuals who created it, not the corporation.
All right, mic drop. I'm done. Are you sitting here telling me that this man was bold enough? Now, you have to understand, in order for me to do this piece, I had to study his entire life. I did see a piece where Kevin O'Leary said that he was the roughest guy, the toughest, hardest businessman. That's not what he called him. He called him some expletives. He was a tough one, he said. Toughest guy, brilliant. Everybody that I studied that was connected to him said he was brilliant, but he was a hard man. But who would think that he was brilliant enough to go outside of tech space to hire a man that worked for Pepsi Cola and to proposition this man by saying, are you going to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world? Mic drop. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. If that doesn't light a fire under you, if that doesn't inspire you to go harder, to think bigger, to really think and consider, what can I do to change the world? Maybe not for everyone, but at least you can change the world for someone else. Amazing story. This is a multi-episode cover, because it's impossible to cover a man like Steve Jobs in one episode. He brought in a necessary hire, and he realized how to hire. They literally said that they hire people who know where the technology industry is headed, which means in whatever industry you are operating, you should be hiring people who know where that industry is going. They should be immersed in it. They should be entrenched in it. It should be in their DNA. They should be eating it, sleeping it, drinking it. They should be watching it. Their eyes should be tuned into excellence in that area. Their ear should be alert and aware and accustomed to the sound of what it sounds like in that field. They should know that's excellent. That's not. Whenever you get into banking, they never coach you and train you on the counterfeit. They always train you on the authentic. Why? Because if you know the authentic, you can spot a counterfeit a mile away. So I would say that when he says that they were the biggest startup company ever, when he says that we hire people who are not necessarily seasoned, but they are proficient and they are on the cutting edge, that says to me that he hired younger people. He let them be them and that they saw the future. Are you looking into the future? Can you see the future from where you are? Do you see yourself changing people's lives? I do. I see you changing lives. I see myself changing lives. I am in this to change someone's life. I have been inspired today. This episode has inspired me. And if it's inspired you, you need to share it with somebody. Share it. You can check me out on kfrancissmith.tv. Or you can go ahead and share this with somebody and change their life. Check us out next week. That's Monday at 1 p.m. We'll be doing part 2 of this episode about the dreamer who changed the world. Steve Jobs, the dreamer who changed the world. Unbelievable how one person's influence can change the lives of so very many. Listen, we're going to close this thing out. And I want to say I am K. Francis Smith, the Purposepreneur. And I pray that all of your dreams become a reality. May you find success in all you do. Until next time, may you live your life on purpose.